10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, at your favorite program, the No Soundbites Allowed. And today we're going to have an exceptional program because I have a great guest with me. It's Melanie Collette. Now, as many of you know, I'm going to be going over to CPAC this year, CPAC 2019. I have several friends who will be joining me, colleagues throughout the nation, and one of them happens to be Melanie Collette. She's with MoneyTalk with Melanie. You can go and see that. And it's a great program. And so without further ado, I'm just going to introduce Melanie. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Everyone may not realize we were having a little bit of technical issues getting the sound right, but everything seems to be working perfect right now. You can still hear me okay?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, fantastic. Because we try and make it good for you folks, because you guys all matter. You are what is important out there. And we love you guys. We really, really do. So, Melanie, let's start off first with, who are you? Who is Money Talk with Melanie?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question.
Always.
Who are you? Well, I'm the host of Money Talk with Melanie. That's one of the things that I do. I'm also an educator. I teach on the secondary level as well as the collegiate level. I'm an adjunct professor in computer science. I teach computer applications as well as financial literacy. I also do some financial consulting, some freelance writing, and I'm very active politically as the vice president of the New Jersey Federation of Republican Women here in New Jersey and the vice chair of the PR committee for the National Federation of Republican Women. So I'm a busy girl.
That is quite a bit. I mean, that's a large resume there. And I don't know how you have time. Go ahead.
Oh, I have no other life, but those are the things that I do. But the reasons why I do them is because I'm a card-carrying Christian conservative, and I really just want to change the world. Until Jesus returns, we have some work to do.
Well, I can understand that, and yes, this world needs a lot of work. I was going to say, how do you sleep? I do not know.
Sometimes very well, sometimes not so much. Bible reading and prayer before bed. That's pretty much it.
Well, that'll do it. And that actually puts your mind at ease. You can have a good sleep that way.
Yeah.
All right. So I know that you've been touching on a lot of subjects. Obviously, you have a wealth of knowledge out there. And I want to tap into that a little bit for my audience and everyone here with us, talking about some of the things that you have going on. So let's start off with, I want to start with, let's start with Smollett, because obviously, I don't.
That's a very sad, it's a sad situation. It's almost like he's having an identity crisis. I don't know if the man is just a complete narcissist who's just not getting near the attention that he wants to get, or if he's a complete and total elitist that hates Donald Trump so much that he thought that he would be able to just, and hates his supporters so much that he thought he would be able to, besmirch the reputations of those of us who voted for him as a whole. I really don't know what he was thinking. But something's wrong with that young man, if you ask me.
Yeah, something seems to be completely off with this guy.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. He's in listening to this whole story, and the first thing that made me wonder, and I normally don't follow any of the entertainers because when it comes to politics, they have no influence. They're just another person. And as much as the media likes to emphasize them, many of them have even less knowledge about politics and the laws that are in our nation than the guy down the street, more often than not. So I tend not to pay too much attention to them. But in this case, I mean, when you hear the story, it's minus 20 degrees. Someone's walking around with a bottle of bleach, another guy walking around with a noose, just looking for someone. How could we not doubt that?
Well, and what really got me, and I tried to, I really reserved saying anything until after all the details were out. But to be honest, what got me was this is MAGA country. Like that just doesn't sound like anything anyone would. It's like I posted on my Facebook page the other day. It sounds like something who doesn't really know Trump supporters thinks Trump supporters would say.
Oh,
but you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like it sounds like a B movie writing to racist.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, well, I'm a little bit older. I'm 50, about to be 51. And it sounds like, maybe the 1960s, 1950s, whenever they showed a black person in a movie or something, and the way they would have us speak in those movies was so absolutely antithetical to and just opposite of anything any normal human being would say. And to put it in a modern context, it's like that movie, The Room. Remember that one? The world's worst movie ever made. It's like everybody in that movie.
Yeah, exactly. And it was terrible. You would think that he would have consulted one of his writing friends to maybe get some advice on what would a Trump supporter say. Like it's just terrible. And what's really terrible is that when real hate crime happens, now people are going to have to second guess it. And the media didn't do a great job vetting it. Neither did some of our presidential candidates on the left. They thrive on this kind of thing. And I don't understand the whole narrative about Trump being racist and all Trump supporters being racist. When what do they do with all the black Trump supporters when they say that? It's like they ignore our existence. And I don't understand that. Or they're saying that we're all, we all must be slow or not smart or something. Like, what do they do with us when they say that? But they have no problem saying that. And frankly, speaking on, like I heard a pundit the other day on the left was saying how MAGA hats trigger all of us in the African American community. And I was like, excuse you. Like, you don't speak for everyone who is black. Like, what are you doing? Oh. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it never does. And they always try and excuse it in every way they can. But I just can't. This is on so many levels, this is a problem. What it's going to do going forward for anyone who actually is a victim, how it's going to hurt them, the way it's portraying any black conservative out there who had a question before, now we're being attacked and we're now the victims because of this, as you mentioned. I mean, there's just so many things wrong with this. And it won't be the last one. They're out there defending him. There are many, many actors and actresses, Elisa Milano and others, who are out there defending him and saying, no, it's still true. It may not be true for him, but it's still true somewhere, so it's okay. It's like, this is insane. Right.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. And I honestly, I'm not completely surprised that somebody would do something like this. I don't keep track of Empire. It's not the type of show that I watch.
Not on my list either.
I don't watch any of that foolishness, to be honest with you. I look at it as foolishness. There's just more important things to absorb and be concerned about. But the whole thing is ridiculous. And he's, in my opinion, just so obnoxious when he's being interviewed, as if he's intimidating. Like, no one's intimidated by you at all. Like, he says he punched the guy in the face, and the guy punched him, and he punched him back. Who believes that? looking at those two guys and looking at him.
One, looking at those guys, and he did it with one hand. He had his cell phone, which is on with his manager, and in the other hand, he had his sandwich from Subway. Really? No, I don't think so.
And then when he was asked, why does he think he was attacked, and he was talking about how he really goes hard for 45 on his Facebook page and on his Twitter, and again, it's like if he understood and knew anything about your basic run-of-the-mill Trump supporter, would know that we really could not possibly care less what you're doing on your Twitter, what anti-Trumpers are doing on their Twitter, what leftists are saying about President Trump. We don't care. No one's looking at that.
No.
None of us care. None of us are probably looking at your tweets.
No,
nor do we care.
Never. I'm not going to. I don't look at the tweets of actors. I'm sorry. I deal with politics. I talk to politicians, whether they're members of Congress or state government. I don't care. I talk to people who actually make laws. I care less what an actor says. So that's one thing that's always been consistent, and I see that with everybody who does what we do, and anyone who follows politics. Who cares what actors think? They really don't matter. But that's enough about him, because I know everyone's talking about it, so I did want to cover it and just address that a little bit, because I just find him annoying. But let me get into the real meat and potatoes here. Let's actually talk about what is really important, which would be talking about, let me start off with gun control. And I don't know where you stand on that. I can make guesses, but let me ask you, where do you stand on the issue of gun control?
Of what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you clearly.
Gun control. Where do you stand on the issue of gun control?
Yeah. Well, I live in the state of New Jersey that's like a super gun control place, and I was looking at the article that we discussed off the air, and of course I scrolled down to New Jersey just to take a look at all the laws. It's funny that the government doesn't seem to work quickly until something as part of the left-wing agenda needs to get done. There are 124 new gun laws in 365 days seems to be a little bit ridiculous. Like, they they were able to get that done, but they can't get some really basic, protections done. For example, I would like to see women anyone, I shouldn't just say women, who are victims of domestic violence get expedited licenses. I'm a Second Amendment person, but I think that guns are the equalizer. I'm 5'2". I'm not going to reveal my weight, but I'm not a 250-pound man. Who's a bachelorette, and a gun is the equalizer. If somebody bigger than me come in my apartment, that equalizes the playing field quickly.
Oh, absolutely. And I absolutely agree with that. I think it's an important fact that a lot of people miss is what happens, when you have a bigger, stronger, a guy who's 6'1", 260, I'm 5'10" and 180, and that would still be a problem for me. I mean, it's not impossible to imagine, and people should. And so these laws aren't helping anyone with that.
Exactly. And so, I truly, and you hear story after story of people defending their homes, and like I said, particularly women, because generally speaking, men are bigger and stronger than women. I know women, there's some feminists that hate to hear that, but that's just fact. And it's an equalizer. So, in those situations, I would love to see, if somebody hits you, you don't have, 4 to 6 weeks to wait and see whether or not the man is going to kill you. Restraining orders don't stop abusers from killing you. You see story after story of, especially if you're planning on killing you and then taking themselves out because they're crazy. You see story after story of women who get killed by their domestic partners all the time, and they had a restraining order. A gun takes care of that.
Oh, yeah.
So, the whole reason why we were given the Second Amendment was to protect ourselves from the government, but to also protect our property, protect ourselves from others. It's in the Constitution. And what they are doing with the laws, just restricting us more and more, I think it's unconstitutional and not going to prevent what they're setting out to prevent, quite frankly. If they want to prevent school shootings, they want to prevent, domestic violence and things like that, they need to clamp down on the crazy people, just like the shooting the other day.
Yeah.
They need to clamp down on those situations. That man should have never had a gun, ever, and clearly was not well.
Oh, absolutely. Now, just for everyone to understand, you're talking about the Aurora shooting just outside of Chicago in Illinois, the state with the strongest gun control legislation in the nation, including red flag laws. And none of that prevented him from going crazy and doing what he did, which is a big argument I have. And I am absolutely against red flag laws because they have never been proven. I've done 8 months of study on it. They have never proven to stop a single crazy or criminal person from using a firearm. They have done nothing but break up families. They don't even stop suicides, according to Duke University and the University of Indiana. So that's a big pet peeve of mine. It's one I'm really against.
I mean, I hate to say it, but the bottom line is if someone has it out for you and they really want to get you, they're going to get you. The only thing that you can do is defend yourself with lethal force. That's just how it is. If you do not have the same equal force that makes it a fair fight, then you're in big trouble.
No, that's absolutely true.
That's how I see it with the gun law.
Yeah. In Chicago right now, there's been 28 people in Chicago who have been killed since the beginning of the year, according to the Chicago Tribune. And that's just one issue on it. And there's been 187 people who have been attacked, or shot in Chicago, according to the Chicago Tribune. And they keep track of that. And usually Chicago runs about 2,500 shooting victims every single year. It's ridiculous. And none of these gun controls help them. But one of the ones I was very curious about, and you've kind of answered this already, but I do want to ask, in the Tampa Bay Times, of the 123 gun laws that have been passed in the past year, in New Jersey, there's one that says that it restricts anyone from being able to have a handgun unless they can justify why they should have it. Now, you've already mentioned.
Yeah, I saw that. It's ridiculous. They made it. They implemented a more strict definition of the justifiable need to carry a handgun for private citizens. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
but that's New Jersey. New Jersey's very anti-gun. New Jersey is the same place that has, I don't know if they still have it, but they used to have an equal force law. Right. Meaning, if someone comes in my apartment and they don't have a gun, then I can't shoot them. So I'm supposed to say, by the way, Mr. Predator, rapey, murdery guy, are you carrying a knife or a gun or just your bare hands so that I know what it is that I'm supposed to use to defend myself?
Yeah, that's
it makes absolutely no sense because, again, it's not a fair fight. I'm not exactly Mike Tyson. It's not. It's not a fair fight. It makes absolutely no sense. And for the longest time, tasers were illegal in the state of New Jersey. They just became legalized maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
See, and I know how it feels, by the way, because I'm in New York State, upstate New York, and we've got the SAFE Act done by Governor Cuomo, which has been absolutely ineffective, has not worked at all, but yet criminalizes people for owning, the scary types of firearms. We have now the red flag legislation, which only helps to take away people's property without due process, and it goes further to break up families and take kids away from parents. We have a 30-day, you got to hear this. In New York State, women now have to wait 30 days before they can get a firearm. So assuming that you somehow got the license in New York State, you would have to wait, Melanie, 30 days before you can get that firearm. And that means in that 30 days, you could potentially, God forbid, you're a public figure. That would mean, you could be in a dangerous situation while they're just sitting on it. Not because they have to process anything. They're just sitting on it for 30 days. I would, if I'm a woman, I'm upset about that. As a man, I'm upset about it. But as a woman, I'd be upset about it even more. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. It's you can't wait when you have a crazy person. And the thing is, I don't know. My mother is a domestic violence counselor, and I don't know very many women who, at some point, especially if you're a woman of a certain age, I'll say, hasn't been in a relationship or had that like creepy guy or have a guy threaten you. Maybe he didn't actually hit you, or maybe he, just threatened to hit you. You don't have time to wait for a gun when somebody bigger and stronger than you threatens you. And it's just a lot more prevalent than a lot of people think. I remember this one gentleman one time asked my mother, is domestic violence is it really a thing?
What? That's crazy. That's crazy that he would even think that. I don't know where that.
Yeah, it is.
So
it is.
I think we're establishing pretty well that you and I are very much on the same page when it comes to dealing with the Second Amendment and the rights of people with the Second Amendment, which is not what the Democrats would like us to believe.
Of course.
Yeah.
They don't. They just, well, they like us to be lockstep with them, but the first thing they do when they want to control you is disarm you. That's the bottom line.
True. That is always the first thing they try and go after, is they want to take your firearms and your way to protect yourself from them.
Right. So, the people don't understand the overall agenda and how unreasonable it is to ban guns, to ban any kind of guns. And it's really just a matter of absolute logic. I mean, only the bad guys don't obey laws. It makes absolutely no sense to disarm the good guys. What are you going to do? It's like something like, 3 million guns on in America or something like that.
350 million.
Like, what? How are you going to get rid of all those guns? Only the bad guys are going to have them. And then what? Then you have absolute tyranny.
Yeah, because the government's the only one who's going to have a firearm at that point. Well, them and
right.
criminals.
And meanwhile,
that's it.
Meanwhile, he's protected by all these guns.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it just drives me nuts. And I always like to ask, whenever I have any woman who's on the program, I always want to ask them their thoughts about this, because I don't think any politician has stopped to actually ask any regular woman, not another politician, but any regular constituent, and say, do you think this is going to help make you safer? Because everyone I have ever asked about this goes, well, no, it's not going to make me safer. It won't. It can't. It just boggles my mind. But
nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It can't. It cannot make you safer, and it's not going to make anyone safer. It's going to make everyone more vulnerable. And Chicago is Exhibit A, and the studies, by the way, bear that out. Look at Texas. You think they have a problem with carjacking and a high murder rate? No, they do not. You know why? Because they never know who has a gun and who doesn't.
True. Very true. Very true.
Because everybody's carrying. That's why.
Yeah, and that makes it a lot more safe for everyone. Melanie, let me do this. We're going to take a quick break. It's about 3 minutes. And then we're going to come back because I want to talk to you about, your specialty, talking about finances and talking about the economy and discussing a little bit about what we're seeing going forward. We're going to take a quick break. Okay?
Sure.
All right.
bring the matches, you bring the gasoline. Let's do it right, oh let's make a scene. There's no survivors, no, no survivors on this road we're on. Lead me astray, you little pussycat. Let's take this day and make it a disaster. Oh, I know what you're after. Happily ever after ain't a joke to you. Still the hand, won the night. Yes, Lord, will you please spare this life? He said no. There's no survivors on this road wrong. Bring the matches, you bring the gasoline. Let's do it right, oh let's make a scene. There's no survivors, no, no survivors on this road wrong. No survivors, no survivors on this road we're on.
All right, everybody, and thank you for joining us. That's right, this is No Soundbites Allowed with your host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I am having an excellent time talking with my co-host, one of my friends who are going to be down at CPAC, the Congressional Political Action Committee meeting of 2019, and that is Money Talk with Melanie Collette. She is on the line with us, and are you still there, Melanie?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, fantastic, and we are back. Now, if everyone's been following this, we've had a great first conversation talking about gun control, talking about, of course, Jusse Smollett. But now we're going to talk about something that's a little different subject. We're hitting a lot of different issues right now, but this is one that's a specialty for you, Melanie. We're talking about economics. We're going to talk about the country overall. And one of the first things that I want to hit on is, do you recall back in, I think it was June of 2018, do you remember Bill Maher?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. He was, he really was something else, I thought. That man, he came out and literally said that he is looking to get a recession in America, that he wants people to be hurt. And I just could not believe that.
Well, to be quite honest, I don't think he and most people at large I don't think he understands in earnest what that means for somebody who's in the middle class or the lower middle class. I don't think he completely understands what that means. I think he meant what he said, but I don't think that he understood what he was saying, if that makes any sense. And I think it comes from, economic ignorance. Like, I don't, he can survive a recession just fine. He's going to be good either way. But people in the middle class and in the lower middle class are not going to be okay. And people in the upper middle class might be okay. So, you know, what he said in that regard, or in my opinion, just came from, you know, a complete sense of ignorance.
Oh,
I think. Ignorance of the economic realities of common folks.
Oh, I think so. I think it's absolutely insensitive and a lack of understanding of what a recession means to people who, when they lose their houses, they lose their cars, they can't afford food for them or their kids, education. The ramifications just go all over. He completely forgot what happened in 2008, 2009, and 2010, and the devastation that happened to the nation. And that's what he asked for. Let's do 2010 all over again. So,
right. It was a very elitist thing to say, and I'm not even sure that he understands how elitist that was. For him to say, like, yeah, that's all well and good that you think that a recession would be awesome, so that Trump will be out of office to satisfy, you know, your philosophical differences with the president, but in real time. It affects real folks, and it affects their, you know, kitchen table economics. It's a problem. So a recession's not an awesome idea. It means people getting fired from their jobs. It means people not being able to pay their bills. So it you know, like I said, it was a really elitist thing to say, which is typical of the left, frankly.
Oh, very much so. And that's the thing that I get from that is because if we look at what happened after the election, and if we're looking at it right now, with Nancy Pelosi running Congress, we have people like Representative Anthony Brindisi, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Socialists out there, and they're looking to raise taxes, you know, 70%, to reverse the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and they're looking to transform the economics of America, quite literally. And I think they're looking for that recession. I think at least some of them are thinking, well, we're going to raise this. We're going to destroy a bunch of jobs. We're going to take people out of their comfort zones to be able to live, and then we'll just blame it on Trump and we'll win. I mean, that's what I'm seeing. But what do you think out in New Jersey and from people that you talk to?
Well, I think, you know, everything as a part of that leftist agenda is about power. And I think they are definitely trying to do that. The more socialism you have, the more government control you have, and the less freedom everybody has. And that's the bottom line. They do not want people to be free. If someone is responsible for feeding and clothing you, you are not free. How many of our parents pointed that out to us growing up? That part of the reason why we did not have the freedom to do what we wanted to do as children is because we don't pay our own freight. We don't feed, we're not feeding, clothing ourselves or keeping a roof over our own head, and thus our parents are the ones who control our freedom. It is not that much different with the government. If the government is going to feed and clothe you, guess what? They control your freedom. Yeah. So, and that is really what this is all about. Leftists do not want us to be a free people. They want to maintain power and control. And if you think that it's not about that, you're not paying attention.
No, I agree completely that they believe in a system of dependency. They're holding down people of color. They're holding down women. I mean, look at their programs. Their programs don't advance people to be able to get their own business, to be able to live their own lives independent of the government. It's always, let's make more government so that you're going to be more dependent on us to be able to stay alive. It's one of my big problems with, what's her name? Senator Kamala Harris. She actually has a proposal out there. I don't know if you heard about this. It came out in December of 2018. While she's in New Hampshire going around for president, she suggested that we should, in her way of helping the public and the poor, is to pay the poor $250 a month so that they can stay poor.
And And that's exactly what they do. And the way the entire system is set up is so that you can stay poor. Think about all of the so-called assistance programs. When you look into them, they require you to quit your job. So, for example, you have a single mother who maybe is working at some minimum wage job, and all she really needs is, I don't know, an extra $200 a month, an extra $500 a month. But instead of giving her that assistance, what they'll do is they'll tell her she can't have her job, she can't have her house, she can't have her car, she can't have all of these things because she has to be completely dependent on the government. It makes no sense.
Oh, yeah.
It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense.
It never does. And they count on the fact that no one's going to stop and say, hey, that's just illogical. That doesn't help anyone. It doesn't free anyone. It enslaves people, economically enslaves them, but it doesn't move them forward. And that's what you're promising is, oh, we're going to help you. Helping me is not putting chains on me economically. I just don't see that ever. And
the welfare reform that Bill Clinton passed when he was president was very helpful. I saw that help people. And one of the things that made me so angry with President Obama, and there were many, was that he rolled back that welfare reform program, that he got rid of the voucher system, and et cetera. But that welfare reform plan, I watched people who were helped with that. That really gave you assistance and encouraged people to get off welfare. What would happen is, as you worked more, they would reduce your assistance, but they encouraged you to work. They would pay for your schooling. Like, I know one girl who became a nurse. She originally was, on total government assistance, and she went to school and became a nurse. They paid for her child care, and then once she was able to afford enough to pay for child care, they cut that back as she was making more money. And that's the way it's supposed to work. It's not supposed to be a lifelong thing, but they don't do it that way anymore. And what's insidious about it is that it's under the auspices of helping, and that's just what makes it so bad.
Yeah, it's insane. And I'm looking at how we have success right now. We have, given everything that they've been saying about President Trump, about the administration, about the tax cuts and Republicans, we see that when we finally get a president and a Congress that actually give us the tax cuts that everyone has been promising for 25, 30 years now, we finally do it. We finally see the economy grow. We finally see people working. We see an unemployment rate that's down at the level of the 1970s, for women and for people of color, historic all-time lows. And they're saying, well, this is really bad, and we have to stop that. I'm like, why? That economically, that makes no sense. Why in the world would we want to stop that? I don't understand it. Have you ever, in the people you've talked to, have you heard anyone who said why this makes sense?
No.
It's an easy answer. Yeah. They drive me crazy with that. Looking at the economics and some of the things that you help people with, let's assume that the worst thing in the world that could possibly happen, we're looking forward to 2020, and somehow Pocahontas, Senator Elizabeth Warren, somehow winds up being the president. Let me back this up a little bit. In October of 2018, I made a prediction that we're going to see one of these three people: Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and or Kirsten Gillibrand. They're all senators. That some combination of those three women, two of those three women, are going to be president and or vice president. They're all socialists. They're all going for the farthest left policy.
You mean they're going to be candidates, right? You don't mean that they're going to win.
No, that they're going to be candidates. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah. But let's take the worst case scenario and let's say that they win. What would you advise people? How can they help themselves economically to plan for the worst case scenario? What would you say or things people can look to do?
Buy gold. I'm kidding. That's a joke. Don't. I'm kidding. That's a joke. I'm just joking. No, listen. There's a whole. First, I don't even know. You just like zeroed in on a terrible worst case scenario that I had not even considered. Like, I just presume that Donald Trump is going to win, and I really don't want to end up like those Hillary people that we keep passing that video around about and mocking and laughing at. But seriously,
oh, yeah.
Seriously, I would strongly recommend, and this is no joke, that you, and this is going to sound self-serving, but I would strongly recommend that you get yourself a professional financial consultant. And it does not matter. This is a misnomer about financial consultants that, you really only need one if you're wealthy. You really only need one if you have a lot of money. No, everyone needs a financial planner, and you don't pay them a whole lot of money. As a matter of fact, you really only pay them when you do stuff with them. But many of them, like myself, are willing to help people plan and look at their situations, see where they are, and move into the future. And I highly recommend that for everyone, and particularly in situations that we're in now, where we have such dramatic differences in public policy and how things are going to be run. Because if that were to happen, if one of those far leftist crazies were to get into the White House, it would depend on what happened in Congress, frankly.
True.
But, I mean, right? I mean, it really would depend on what happened in Congress. I mean, if, God forbid, one of them became president and we, lost those houses or something like that, then, God help us all. Then we're in big trouble.
That's worse than I can
I would
imagine.
highly recommend that for anyone. And to be completely honest, your locality, your municipalities, and your state taxes and your state regulations and your local regulations affect your day-to-day life more than the federal regulations do. The federal regulations and the president and all that stuff does affect your daily life. But from a financial perspective, really looking locally and in what your state does affects you much more. You're talking about, your sales tax, your gas tax, your income tax, all of those things. And of course, you have those on a federal level, but they tend to be higher and have more of an impact locally and on a state level. So, I always recommend that people shy away from planning. People shy away from taking a look at their financial situation and taking an honest to God look at where they stand. But I recommend that no matter who's president, quite frankly, find out what your situation is, find out what you're planning on doing. We just don't plan things as a people financially.
No.
And it's a bad thing. And we don't protect ourselves. I think that's why the government unfortunately forces us to get car insurance, because car accidents are so prevalent. But people don't, protect their assets. They don't protect themselves with life insurance. There's a lot of gaps that are more important that the president just doesn't affect. And like I said, at the risk of sounding self-serving, it's just the absolute truth.
No, you know what? You're right. And I used to be a stockbroker myself, but not everyone listens to former stockbrokers. So you're an expert, and obviously I wanted your expert opinion on this. And I think people need to hear this more, because especially for people of color and women, those are two of the groups when I was a stockbroker that were the hardest to try and get into the stock market, to try and learn about investing, about how to plan their money for the future. Just because it's something that you don't hear about. You hear you should be a rapper, you should be an entertainer of some sort, but you don't hear people saying, you need to make a financial plan for your future, and you need to do that now. So it's always important to have someone saying that, especially someone of color, to be able to bring that out.
Listen, it's not fun. It's like working out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's like when you say you go to the doctor. I apologize. Like when you go to the doctor And, you know, you tell your doctor, listen, I want to lose weight and I want to be healthy. I want my future years to be healthy. And then the doctor says, well, in order to do that, you need to cut back on the sugar, cut back on the fat. You should probably make sure that you move a little more. He says, make sure you get a complete physical so I can find out where you are now so we can make sure that your future is right and we can take care of anything that's going on now. That's what's going to happen, right?
No,
but what do? We don't go to the doctors when we're supposed to make sure we know, to make sure that we know and understand where we are with our physical health. We don't move as much as we're supposed to. We're not careful about what we're eating. And then we're surprised when we look down the road and we're overweight and we're not healthy. Your financial health works the exact same way. Many of us do not take the time to look at our financial health and see where we're going, and then we're shocked and surprised when something happens and we are in an unhealthy financial state. No. It is the same thing. There's no, as any health guru will tell you, there's no shortcut. Eat less, move more. And it's the same with your financial situation. No. Spend less, save more. That's the key. And the key is to understand what your goals are, what you personally want to do, and consult with somebody who's a professional that can tell you how to get there.
No, I agree with that, every part of that, 100%. And I want people to remember, if they want to hear more about this and they want to learn more about these issues, they can go to your site, the MoneyTalkWithMelanie.com. And you're also on Twitter. I know you have a Facebook page as well. And you do a podcast, right?
I do. My podcast is called Money Talk with Melanie. You can get all of the archived episodes there. I have two. My show used to be once a week. Now my show used to be 5 days a week. Now it's once a week because I'm actually very busy with my consulting work. So I went down to once a week, but it's once a week for 2 hours. I always have some kind of expert guest on. And it can be about anything. It has a conservative and Christian worldview, so I do not shy away from talking about the spiritual aspects of business success. It talks about kitchen table politics. It also talks about the economy. I talk about pretty much anything and everything, and I've been blessed to have some really good guests on the show. So I'm super excited. And, as a matter of fact, during CPAC, when I'll probably get to meet you in person, I'm going to have Andy Berger, who is she is the executive director of a place called Beulah's Place that rescues homeless kids, and she's going to talk about the sex trafficking industry with kids and why we need to build the wall. And then I just nailed down my second guest, and to be honest, I can't remember his name because I just nailed him down an hour ago for the second hour of CPAC. But that's the kind of thing that I talk about. Sometimes it's really light kind of stuff, like, you know, how to brand your business and things like that. But sometimes it's some heavy stuff, like the reasons why we need to build a wall, and you know, the billion-dollar industry that is sex trafficking of kids, and having an expert come on and talk to us about that, and, you know, make sure that we tie in the discussion about what the government spends and what the government doesn't, and then why it's important for you to know that and what you can do about it. So that's what my show talks about, how all of those things are intertwined.
Well, those are all important things, and I'm really glad that we were able to get you. And I love to hear that you're getting your guest list all together. I have a soft confirmation from Deneen Borelli. She should be appearing. And so we need to work out the final date and time.
Excellent. She's one of my faves. Yeah, actually, I have my show. My show is done, and I have 4 mini interviews scheduled because I'm going to do like a CPAC special after. So I'm going to try to do like maybe 6 or 7 mini interviews. Right now, I think I have 4 confirmed. And I'm going to do like a CPAC special where I just kind of narrate and then introduce the person that I'm talking to and play those interviews.
No,
So
that sounds excellent, and I'm going to look forward to, for the ones that since we're going to be there interviewing other people, I'll look forward to being able to see your special, see all the people I missed while we're down there.
yeah.
But I know we're finishing up right now, and I thank you again for the time today. I apologize for the initial technology issues, but let me ask you, I always like to ask this of anyone I interview, is there anything that we've talked about a lot of different issues and a lot of different subjects? Is there anything, though, that you wanted to make sure that you got to speak to my audience about and let them know about?
I want to make sure the audience knows this, that God is in control. He's handling everything. So they need not worry as much as they worry. As much as we worry about politics and the things that are going on, it's still his creation. The earth and mankind is still his creation. He still has a plan for it. So as much as all of these powerful world leaders think that they have control, the ultimate plan is still in place. So we need to relax just a little bit and say in prayer about that. That would be my parting word to your listeners.
Well, those are great words, and I thank you for them. Again, everyone, this has been Melanie Collette of the Money Talks with Melanie. She's done a fantastic show for quite some time. She's going to be down at CPAC 2019 with me. I advise you, check her out beforehand during CPAC. When you're not watching me, please check her out and see what she's been doing, and give us all feedback. We always love to hear it. But with that, I want to end this, and I thank you for the interview, and I'll look forward to seeing you down at CPAC very, very soon.
Excellent. I can't wait.